Last time we had a back of the envelope approach using a whiteboard to put all the numbers together to successfully quantify and crystallize um, a, a large portion of the votes in the tens of millions that Biden actually got that we could not explain naturally. So we call that Biden magic, right? And today I'm going to, first of all, use a proper computer spreadsheet to run those numbers once again as a recap. This is the same set of numbers that we were demonstrating on the whiteboard, which I called the back of the envelope approach. Now we put them on a spreadsheet in a computer so we can more efficiently demonstrate and run some scenarios. Okay, now we are comparing 2016 and 2020. We had the popular votes of Clinton and Trump and the others, which is all the other candidates combined, and we have the total number of votes and the registered voters, and also the turnout as per registered voters, the turnout as per eligible voters, and the total number of eligible voters, and the total population of the nation. And then we have the same set of numbers for 2020. Now the thing that pops up immediately is the high turnout rate. We know that from the 70s onward, this turnout as per the total number of registered voters has always been in the 80s. Now this one is 102%. In fact, it is the highest in 120 years. It just cannot be. So what we're going to do is to what we did last time, what we're going to do now is to shrink it to a reasonable, feasible number. We'll put it down as 92%. Even that is already a bit high. But let's forget it. Let's say, okay, I give you the highest you can get, 92%. Even though that may be a bit too much. If that's the case, and then the next position we take, the assumption we make is that the Trump number is a good number, is the real number. By any means, the actual Trump votes can only be larger than reported because we have reports about the glitches. We have reports about Trump's votes actually got stolen or destroyed or not counted, right? But for the time being, we just assume that this is the exact number of votes that Trump got. And also, we believe that for Joe Jorgensen and the rest of the candidates, people are not exactly interested in tampering those votes. So we believe that is to be a right number. If we do that, then we immediately work out from the 92% turnout that the total number of votes counted would be 140.8. We take away the Trump and the other numbers. The remaining number would be the actual Biden number. So we can see that between the 64 and the 80, we had 50.8 million, roughly 16 million, that cannot be explained. And last time I called that the Biden magic. Before we go to the Biden magic, I can tell you that we can break down we believe to be a reliable number of Trump votes. We know that this is an increase of almost 11 million from last time. And we also know that the other candidates have a combined votes that shrunk for something like 5 million. So we say, let's divide the 5 million equally between the two major parties. Okay, so Trump get 2.5, Biden gets 2.5, and we also know that the actual population marginally increased, and also the eligible voters, the total number of eligible voters also increased. So we say, okay, we give 2 million votes to Trump from the people who did not vote before, okay, the new votes. So if we take away the 2.5 and the 2 million, and we still have the remaining increase of the Trump votes comparing to 2016 of more than 6 million. This can only be taken from the base of the original Democratic base. We know that there are actually, from the polls, a lot of people who voted for Clinton, for Hillary last time, they have switched and they are voting for Trump now. So if we look at Biden now, if we look at Biden at the 92% turnout as the way that we have calculated everything, that Biden has to work against a reduced base of the Democratic voters of 6.3 million, which is the mirror of that. But he also, he got a half of the share of the reduction from the other candidates. So he got a boost of 2.5 million. And then then the remaining boost would be 2 million, a little bit more than 2 million, if that 64.2 that we calculated based on the assumption that we put down here has to be from the legitimate new votes. So that makes sense, okay? Both candidates get around 2 million new votes from people who did not vote for in the last election, and both get an equal split of the the votes that actually they took from the other candidates. And then Biden lost his Democratic base by a magnitude of 6.3 million to Trump, and then that explains everything. So I take one step further. Remember, we said that there has been reports about the glitches. The glitches would work in a way that it would increase the votes of one candidate, and by taking it from another candidate, so the total number of votes would not change. The total number of votes counted would not change. It simply takes from one pocket and put it in another pocket. Let's just say we have a 2 million switch of the glitches. If that's the case, and then the Biden magic would become 17.8 million. Now, remember we said that there would be maybe a small amount of Trump votes actually disappeared, destroyed, or not counted. We just say we use something called an adjustment factor, the Trump adjustment factor. Let's just say the actual votes that were for Trump is 101% of what is reported using this calculation. Then the actual votes that Trump got would now be slightly higher. The combination of the glitches and the Trump factor, and then the total that Trump get would become the actual restated number for Trump would be 76.6, and in that case the Biden magic would be 18.5. So we can continue to do that, okay? In order to get, if we now we hold everything unchanged, but we move the turnout rate to be higher. If we move it to 100%, Biden will still get less votes than Trump. We have to move it to 101%. And even that, you see this, I think the people behind the scenes, they actually manipulated the whole thing with a lot of fine tuning. If we move it to just slightly less than 102, then they were even, okay? Now we can do a go seek, but I'm not going to do that because it will take some time. If we do a go seek, we can see that to work out a number around 102, we would have the two at a tie. Would basically 102 turnout would create a tie. Okay, so the people behind the scene, they actually been electronically fine-tuning the whole thing to get Biden to win the election just by a very small margin. And then they thought that this fraud would look convincing. Now let's take a trip to to Arizona and look at this particular state. Okay, now we had the 2012 numbers of Obama against Romney, and we had the Clinton versus Trump of 2016, and we also had a set of numbers that I think is interesting to look at. We had unsolicited mail-ins of 3.5 million, and returned mail-ins of 2.88 million. That means we have unaccounted votes, ballots that have been sent out, more than 656,000 that is floating somewhere, okay, in a population of only slightly increased in 2020 to 7.4 million. In a state of 7.4 million, they have sent out unsolicited mail-ins. You know, they are positioning this as requested mail-ins. But in reality, we have real reports of voters who did not ask for mail-in ballots, still sometimes receive more than one. But according to the official reports, they have sent out more than 3.5 million. And the return is only 2.886. So in other words, we have 656,000 ballots that were floating somewhere, sent to unknown address, and whoever has harvested them, whoever has possession of them. Now, we use the same exercise. We are assuming that the reported votes of Trump are real, the same logic, okay? And also for the other parties are actual. And then we say Trump get a lot more than last time. And we also say there may be some flip from the other parties, from the others, some from the Democratic Party, and some from the new votes. And here we can see that the registered voters are much larger than last time. And Trump, if he is taking half of the new votes from the increase of the registered voters, then he would get 346,000 new votes. And then he got the rest of that would be the flips, or the people who switch from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. If that's the case, then we apply the same to Biden. Biden would get 43,000 increase from the other candidates, but he lost 37,000 from the Democratic base. If he also get exactly the same amount of the new votes, then in that case, the turnout would be 70. We work backwards. Then the turnout would be 75.35%. Now, if that's the case, now we know that last time the turnout was 71%, and the turnout in 2012 was 73.57%. Now, that seems to make sense. So in other words, we can work out the Biden magic in this case in Arizona to be 157,000 votes. Okay. And very quickly, we look at Pennsylvania from a different angle. The 2016 numbers, we just look at the turnout as per registered voters was 70%, 70, and the turnout per eligible voters was 61%. And this year we have reported more than 80% of the turnout is also very high, and we also have reported 69.07% as per eligible voters. And these are the population and the eligible voters, and these are the reported popular votes that Biden and Trump both got. And he actually, that margin was not that wide. But if we shrink the turnout to get Biden to receive, or to be an exact tie to receive the same votes that is reported for Trump, the turnout would be 79.5%. In other words, if we lower the turnout from 80.47 reported by less than 1%, then we would exactly have a tie of Biden and Trump. And don't forget, we had unsolicited mail out of more than 3 million ballots. And we had a return of 2.6 million ballots. We had more than 457,000 ballots floating somewhere in the system unaccounted for. Okay, on this part, let's look at this infamous chart. I think this figure has shown up too many times already. If you can refer to a report that Senator Rand Paul has mentioned, they have details about 4 incidents in which in the middle of the night or early in the morning, the blue line just shot up in a straight line. And then we had a very healthy lead of Donald J. Trump for the whole night, and then somehow they stopped counting, and we had huge dumps of hundreds of thousands of votes that went to Joe Biden, and then after that, Joe Biden took the lead. Now, when you look at this shape, and you look at the counting, I think there has been a mystery that I don't know how to explain it. Now position yourself as the person who's actually counting the votes, okay? Why would you stop counting, first of all? And secondly, why would you count so many votes in such a short period of time? Why did it happen in so many different states, almost with the same pattern? Okay, if you say these are the mail-in votes, but the mail-in votes were already in the system, you see, on election day. If you open the mail-in votes and you start counting them, you have to first take them out, as you can refer to some of these sworn affidavits. Okay, you have to take them out from the envelopes, and you have to straighten them. You have to put them one by one in the scanning machines, and then they will tabulate. Okay, you tabulate and you put that on the live feed, and then on a live update, the whole nation can see it. Why do you tabulate all these amounts of votes from the mail-ins, but not putting it there in the live feed for the whole nation to see? Only after you accumulate to a magic amount of votes, then you push the button, you put everything there in one go. It doesn't make any sense, because you cannot process so many votes in such a short period of time. But what happened was they tried to explain, tried to tell you that you are the person who lies, okay? They said, these are the mail-in votes. They only process it into the computer at a very late stage, but they were counted. If they were counted, they should have shown up in the live update. If you don't show that in the live update, you accumulate the whole amount and have this whole thing burst out in almost like a magic moment. Then you are inviting people to doubt your system, to be skeptical about whether that was true or not. The only explanation was they were not the real mail-in votes. They were the electronic inputs in which you can very easily change the software or override the software with manual adjudication, they call that. And then they can input a magic amount in a very short period of time. What happened was because the healthy lead of Donald Trump could not be eliminated with the counting going on, and you running out of time. If you don't stop the counting, then it would be too late to dump anything in. But if you stop the counting, you start calculating for the magic amount, and once you get the magic amount done, then you push a button, they were in, and then you shift to a new trajectory, and then bingo. In a court of law, one is presumed innocent until proven guilty. We have due process. But in detective work or practical criminology, you might assume that the crime is already committed, and then you work backwards to figure out how it was done, and you get into the criminal mindset and try to think in their shoes, in how they can avoid getting caught, how they can avoid being found out, right? So this is how investigative work should be done when you suspect there has been a crime. So that has been what I'm doing. Now, first of all, we know that there are so many ways that you can do it, and it's totally feasible. It's very easily done. The switches or the glitch is actually something that you can flip the votes from one candidate to another candidate by adjudication, by counting manually. You say, oh, this is Biden, but I think this is Trump. Then you can switch the whole thing there. And electronically, they can also do that in massive way because the software is structured as such that you can manually adjust the outcome. That is called the glitch. But the glitch would not change the total outcome of the votes counted. So when I look at the turnout, I know that a lot of that is not from the glitch, okay, or the glitches. A lot of that is actually from creating votes. Because of that, you have a very high turnout, okay? How to create the votes? You know, we have mail-in votes, and you know from the examples of Arizona and Pennsylvania and many other places, there has been hundreds of thousands of ballots that have been sent out to whatever address, and they were not returned. And those were hundreds of thousands of ballots unaccounted for. Those were real ballots. Those were not fake or false ballots. Like if you have somebody who can print the money using the official paper, and then you can print it in a different place with an identical printing machine, then you can make a lot of fake money easily, right? Because those were genuine ballots that just floating somewhere. So they could always reproduce them at the right time when they were needed. And the next thing is very importantly, I think a lot of people have been accomplices because there has been tens of millions of real Trump haters who are self-righteous, and they believe that the end justify the means. So they would do anything above and beyond the law to get rid of Donald Trump. And the Democratic Party has been actually indicating and implying in the last few days before Election Day that people should go and vote personally after they have sent in the mail-in votes. Now, in normal circumstances, only one vote is counted. But how about if the people who are running the election turn a blind eye to that? And bear in mind, a lot of those mail-in votes actually were mailed in after the 28th of October. And they would arrive maybe just about on election day or even after the election day, when the person has already done his mail-in and then walked to the station to cast his vote. There's no device in place to find out that he has already voted. You see, there's no way you can find out. In the original traditional absentee votes, you actually have to make applications well before election. When the time when you make applications, they have already marked out your IDs on the registration information. So the same person, when he goes to the polling station, they would say you have already applied for absentee votes. So you cannot vote for the second time. Even if you insist, they would put you in a category called the provisional vote. And after they have decided that you actually did not vote before, they would count this vote. But here is something very different. Remember the words, unsolicited mail-in ballots. These were sent out in the millions to everybody, to the people who have not requested it. So those people who got ballots, sometimes they get more than one ballot from the mail, and then they can have if they want to break the law, they have the ability to vote 2 times, 3 times, or even more, right? And there's no way you could find out on election day. And the last thing is the electronic theft. When you have the tabulation on the scanned image instead of the paper itself, and you have all these scanned images stored in USB flashes, and you have flashes that were floating around casually, and they were lost and found like tens or maybe hundreds of them. Then a lot of things can happen to that electronic database. They could create something out of nothing. And I think if that is something that you have the capacity of doing, and you are the person who is running the election, and you are the person who is supposed to be supervising the whole process, then that means you can destroy all the evidence after the fact. So you will never get caught. And also, for some of the mail-in votes, as we see, they cannot present the signatures on the envelopes and the IDs that were already verified, and they refuse, like in Georgia, to provide you with the envelopes to verify and audit. They only give you the paper ballots without the envelope to audit and count. And what is the use, right? So I would say, given everything we know at this point, and given that these mysterious ways they calculate and fine-tune the final results to actually flip every single battleground state to the advantage of Joe Biden, if you tell me, if you ask me, what is my logical conclusion, I would say it's only explained by massive fraud. No other explanation can satisfy our understanding and observation of the evidence that are so profound. Thank you.